Gentleman yields back. I'll now go to the gentlelady from Florida that both imports and exports natural gas, Ms. Castor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, it's only been since 2016 that Congress authorized the export of fossil gas. It's grown exponentially. It has had some positive benefit of displacing dirty coal. But I think now looking out to the future, as the estimates are that the exports could double, it is an appropriate time for the administration to take a hard look on the what the impacts are going to be. Is it going to continue to raise prices on my folks back home? Because my neighbors in the Tampa area, we are being socked. Our electric bills, primarily tied to gas, are out of sight. Is it going to create additional environmental risks for the people of the Gulf Coast? What does it mean for our national security? I'm sure that unfettered exports are great news for gas companies. They will benefit. But really, what impact does it have on American families and on our national security and pollution? And especially as we know that a lot of these exports go to China. I serve on a select committee on kind of confronting the Chinese Communist Party. Is this going to fuel what they're doing right now? Ms. Giannetti, do U.S. LNG companies send a significant amount of their product to China?
Yes, currently China ranks around 7th in overall, but in terms of future LNG exports, it is the single largest identified consumer, amounting to up to 14%.
It's interesting that so many seem so eager to fuel Chinese industry without weighing potential energy and national security risks. And Ms. Giannetti, how does the LNG boom impact energy bills for American families? And do you think the massive growth of exports has contributed to U.S. inflation by raising energy costs for American families?
Energy costs are one of the most important things for American pocketbooks. And as we have seen, when there is an increase in exports, it has a disproportionate impact on gas-reliant energy consumers and raises energy bills. So it has a negative impact on the U.S. public interest and the U.S. economy.
And I have one study in front of me that found that gas exports cost U.S. consumers $100 billion over a 16-month period. But I go back to what I hear from my neighbors in the Tampa Bay area every day. Because we're not tapping lower cost, cheaper energies like solar power, they've been overly reliant on gas, and it has been an enormous drag on their economic well-being. The electric bills are out of sight because we're tied to gas. It's too volatile. Also, I want to emphasize that the Biden administration closely considered Europe's energy security in making this decision, which followed a letter January 25th from over 60 members of the EU Parliament in support of taking a look at this. The letter clearly states Europe should not be used as an excuse to expand LNG exports that threaten our shared climate and have dire impacts on U.S. communities. Do you think it's important to consider our other policymakers overseas?
Certainly, Congresswoman, and that's part of the reason why this is an extremely measured, common sense announcement from the administration, because it has zero effect on current LNG exports or already approved LNG exports, the ones that are going to Europe.
And didn't recently at the Conference of Parties, all countries on the planet agree that it was time to transition away from fossil fuels? Yes,
at COP28.
And part of the reason is because that there are significant burdens on many communities across the country. So many of the communities along the Gulf Coast have long carried the burden of these dirty industries. Do communities along the Gulf Coast benefit from rising exports to countries like China, or are there significant environmental risks associated with expansion of LNG export terminals?
As a former resident of Gulf communities in Louisiana, Texas, and Florida, I have seen firsthand the impacts of energy expansion on the energy security and climate security of the Gulf. It's super important that we focus on the impact of these projects on Americans, both in terms of their pocketbooks, but also in terms of their overall energy and climate security. And the administration's pause will enable us to do that.
I wholeheartedly agree, and I compliment the administration for their willingness to take this look at our national security, affordability, and the incredible environmental impacts of what's going on. Thank you. I yield back.